Welcome to Authentic Talk with the Thomas family. I want to introduce you to my dad, Peter, my mom, Vanita, my sister, Sarah Rachna, my other sister, Sneha Ruth, my wife, Shirley, and my name is Sandeep. Today, we want to talk to you about the topic of loss and what that means to us.
Well, that's actually a really interesting topic to discuss because I read this quote by Norman Cousins that says, "Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside of us while we live."
I'm thinking back to the loss that I faced in my life, and it happened when I was a very small child. I lost my mother in a very, very tragic way, and my father was an abusive alcoholic, and I lost him, and that really separated my family. And I think that it shattered me as a child, and it separated me from my family, and I felt that loss. And for a small boy at the young age of 5, that is that has a tremendous impact on his life, I think. And it's something that rides with not only me, but every other child who goes through something like that for the rest of his or her life. And it affects in many, many different areas. I know it's affected me. Anybody else has experienced loss here?
I think everybody experiences loss at some point in their life, and it's inevitable. I think each one of us has some or the other losses that we can think about. My dad had a stroke when I was 9 years old, and I lost my hero. There was no father figure, and it has been a struggle ever since. My dad is, by God's grace, still alive, but I think as a family, my mom and my sister, we went through close to 16 years of just dealing with everyday pain and everyday loss of his stroke, and that was really hard on the family. And multiple losses in the process. So
Loss for me brought out a lot of feelings of fear and anxiety about the future. There are times when I'm making a decision or whatnot, I will act not out of just simple fear, but out of fear of losing something that is in front of me, something that I have. Whether it's a sudden change that happens in my life or whatnot, because my mind immediately goes to, I lost my first mother because she couldn't care for me the way that she felt or that she deemed necessary. So she gave me into a loving home and gave me parents that love me, but I still deal with the loss of that, and it pops up in unexpected ways, and it messes with your life a lot because it makes me rethink every decision I make, and it makes you very vulnerable, very susceptible to change. So it's difficult.
Rachna, do you think you faced any loss with being under Sandeep and Sneha? Because when they came, when they had their losses, they went through a lot of trauma, and they took up a lot of mommy and daddy's time and energy. So you were born, much later.
Yeah, right in the middle of all that chaos also.
You're 12 years younger than Sandeep, 6 years younger than Sneha. So what did that do for you?
I don't think it impacted me as much as it did all of them, but I think I did lose a lot of time in my childhood. Like, a lot of time that would have been spent with other families that you, mom and dad, would have spent with me, ended up spending more time with them instead. And so it did make me struggle a lot when it came to school and stuff too.
Yeah, that's really good, Rachna, because I know that, mom had to really focus on Sandeep first and then Sneha, and they were really, really traumatized and they were struggling. And though you were a baby, and you needed some kind of help, but a lot of my attention went to them. And honestly, I was struggling with loss because I had all these plans of being a career woman, and then God brought Sandeep, who needed a home when he was 6 years old. I didn't expect to be a mom to a traumatized 6-year-old. So yeah, all of a sudden everything that I had studied, everything that I'd lived for and planned for was gone. I had to stay at home with him because he couldn't cope. And in a way that made me angry. So yeah, you didn't have a full mom, right? In a way. And I'm sure you felt that.
Yeah, I did. I struggled a lot until like a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm. That's good, yeah. How would you?
Yeah, as far as I was concerned, I think how it affected me was I was in a pretty good career path while I was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I went up very fast, was promoted extremely fast into executive.
I don't know whether you all know, that was the time of the internet boom.
Oh.
And Daddy, I know you all don't know a time without the internet, but for us that was just the beginning. And Daddy very quickly jumped from physics into, internet development, web development.
And I became an executive manager in a couple of companies and a really blossoming career. But unfortunately, because of the trauma that you both had experienced, you had to spend a lot of time with them. And it took a toll on you. And it caused a lot of stress in our marriage. And so at some point I felt that if I continued down that path, I don't think our marriage would survive.
So there was loss then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in fact, I changed jobs. It was a big step down for me, so that I could spend more time with the kids. And that took many, many years to recover from.
Yeah, that's a big loss.
Does anything that you experience now in any of your circumstances bring you back to that time of loss? Is anything a trigger for you to just suddenly switch back into that, oh, I've lost something, now what do I do?
I think me being away from my family because they're in India and that's 10,000 miles away, I think memories of me being there and being able to help mom and dad and my little sister, I think I still feel the loss sometimes. I was sharing with mom
Just this afternoon.
a few hours ago, in fact, just how much sometimes I miss the family, especially during Christmas and New Year's and especially their birthdays and times where I'm not there and really think that I was such an integral part of the family and now suddenly I'm so far away. I think it's just the loss of just having them around me all the time. And I thank God for giving, mom and dad here, where I can feel that love. But I do miss mom and dad back home.
I think I told you that. I said, we can never replace your mom, but we're here for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think something I've noticed, we are as a family very close. So there's a lot of love. I think each one of us loves each other in different ways. And we experience that love from each other in different ways. But I'm also sensing that there's a domino effect that loss has in each of our lives. So the losses that I had in my life, they had a direct impact on you as my mom and as my dad, and as my siblings, right? Over the years that we were growing up and learning how to deal with these losses, it really affected, and so that took time away from you. That took time away from you, your career. It had a negative effect on you because you saw how much of...
because you were partners in crime.
And we were partners in crime. So all of that loss, I do get the sense that it is a domino effect, and it affects other people that you come close in contact with also. So I feel like it's a real big push and pull, almost. Yes, there's loss, but there's a way to push it aside and get very angry and bitter. Or within a family setting, you learn to deal with it and love each other regardless of that loss.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point, because I think deep down, if we are just by ourselves and we're suffering the loss, we can crumble. We can just fall apart. We can just disintegrate.
Because these are big losses.
These are big losses. But because we are there as a family, when one is down, the other one can encourage the other, and we can kind of hold each other up and support each other. And usually we're all down at exactly the same time.
Which is a good thing, right? Because imagine that otherwise.
There would be World War III.
I'm gonna pick you up with my hands.
But I think the point is, It is, and you have to be intentional about it, because it is really possible for marriages to fall apart, families to fall apart, and this is something that we need to be aware of and fight it.
And I would say that in our marriage, it's been, there is great loss. We've almost never had time
Right.
to really build ourselves up, and it was easier to be angry and frustrated, and we were. There were many, many times we've done that. It's just the grace of God. So I would like to ask you both. You've been married not too long.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
Starting our third year.
And each of you has come in with different losses. See, Daddy and I didn't have that. Because when we started out, we didn't have that kind of loss. But we stepped into loss. For you both have come with fairly severe loss. How does it affect, you as individuals, as adults, but also how does it affect you in your marriage?
That's a good question. I think, because I was so small when I had my losses, life was was out of control for me. And I think now, at least I could see as I was growing up, and and now coming into adulthood, being in control of things was a necessity for me. And so, I grew up to be a very organized, neat, structured person.
Clean freak.
And in small ways. But it also had the negative effect where I needed things to be in control. Otherwise, my mind wouldn't be able to process things, or I wouldn't be able to work as effectively.
So you can't handle chaos.
And I can't handle chaos. So I think in our marriage, we're two opposite people. So I am.
God does that, right?
I am.
Opposites attract, Sandeep.
Yes.
But it also makes a hard marriage.
So yes, and it's good because opposites do attract. But at the same time, we had to go through and learn how to deal with each other's. I think our
loss and pain.
Our loss and our pain, and how that affected our marriage. So, for an example, I would want things in control even in our marriage. And I would want things to be a certain way, but I have to realize that it's not just about me in this marriage. It's also about my wife. It's about Shirley, and in the middle of all that, it is about what God wants for our marriage too. So I can't have the final say, and that's something I had to learn. What about you?
Do you have any examples?
Yeah. So I'll tell you how I feel first, and then maybe we can give out some examples. For me, because we were such a close-knit family and we were always caring and giving that extra love, and I grew up with a lot of affection, especially with a lot of
estrogen there.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 women in the family. So I think where I find it a little bit difficult and I find loss is when Sandeep is so taken away by his work, and he's so busy sometimes with school and work. Sometimes I hardly get to spend time with you and see you, and I think that the first year of our marriage was like that. I found it very difficult when we weren't able to connect, and when I didn't have that one-on-one time with you, and I think that brought me down a lot. Yes, it's given us time to bring that back, but here and there when that is lacking, I do feel loss. That way.
That's a good example. Lucy and Rachna, as sisters, I'm sure each of your losses has affected you, probably more your loss, Sneha. Rachna, would you like to give some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Sneha and my relationship was really strained especially because of her loss. And since I was under both of them, I got upset with her a lot, and we both it seemed really hard to get a good relationship, and so loss kind of forced that.
I think my loss really was fueled in my relationship with Rachna, because that's all I was focused on. I was focused on, okay, like when I found that you on accident had her ultrasound picture in your drawer, it immediately was a thing of, I lost this. I don't have an ultrasound picture. I don't have tiny baby photos. I don't have, you know, the coffee table newborn collection photos. I don't have it, and it was nothing.
No baby
that
shower.
no baby.
No
Well, yeah,
welcome.
there was nothing like that, and I think
Oh, wait, there was a baby shower for you.
there was a baby shower, but more.
Look, Auntie Sweet.
My memories fail me for that one, but and I think you can attest to all the things that happened in the beginning. But I think it made me, the loss really clouded my sight of having a sister. I think it made me lose sight of the beautiful relationship of having a sister, and I think it made me focus on all the bad things. Like, okay, she has this and I don't have this because I lost, and she gets that, and I, even though I got it, I didn't get it as much as her because I was so focused on me, because I was so focused on the loss that I experienced. I wasn't able to comprehend the love that was being shown. So I had a choice.
She adored you.
I had a choice. I had a choice to accept the love or to grieve over the loss. And for years I chose to grieve over the loss. And I destroyed for a long time the relationship that we could have had. And it's still, as you can all attest to, it's still
And it
being built up now. But
it wasn't just grieving, right? There was also a lot of anger.
yeah, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of resentment, a lot of hatred for nothing except the fact that she knew her parents and that she was so lucky to have and so blessed to have parents
You mean
who
birth
wanted
parents?
her. Yeah, to have birth parents who wanted her. Yeah, because I know that
Yeah,
you
but
both
we
have
want
wanted
you
me.
too.
No, I know. I
Yeah.
was saying birth
We
parents.
love you.
But the thing that I faced with loss was that it brought out it magnified my hurt. It made me, every time I'd have to think, every time it brought me back to that position of I'm missing something. I don't have it. It's a puzzle piece. I have all of the pieces. It's great. It's going to look fabulous. But I'm missing one. And it's now, I don't care.
And it's a big one.
It's a big piece. I mean, if you have the whole picture, but except the one piece that's the major part of it, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
And I think it skewed my relationships when it came to dealing with you and Dad, and it made me, you know, hate the way and how you parented me, and it made me hate changes when I lost my partner in crime, and you both got married, and I think the person that suffered the most was me, because instead of embracing what I could have, I was resenting everyone that I had.
And pushing us away.
Exactly, and pushing away. And I think that when Dad says about being in community and having someone as support, even as Shirley said, I think the communal living is so important, because if you don't have that, then you don't have somebody to lean on. And like she said, if you're all, one's down and everybody's down, then there's no one to help pick up.
Yeah.
But you need that support.
Yeah.
So.
Mom, you were saying, you know, in the early years, going off the topic of the communal living
Yeah.
and support and care and love, because I think that's a requirement. If we're all dealing with loss, and that loss is a domino effect like we talked about, and it also brings up some of these other feelings of anger and hatred and bitterness, you do need support. What kind of support did you get in the beginning? Because I'm thinking back to you as a young mother, suddenly, you know, having both of us come into a family
Within 6 months.
within 6 months, and two traumatized kids, two kids who have dealt with loss. What was the support and love and the communal scene back then for you?
So we were in New Jersey at that time, and we did have some good friends, and you know, and some family there. But overall, I think people had certain expectations. I think that's a general thing in, you know, the world that we live in. Especially, I think, being Indians, I think there's that feeling that you have to kind of fit into a box. And you have to be good, you have to be successful.
Like
you
the
have to,
check mark off.
Yeah, you have to study so
Yeah.
much, you have to come from a good family,
Yeah.
you know, your family line, your DNA. So all these things were there. And I think whether people actually voice it or not, well, I think a lot of people are not willing to face it. But I think it's there. If you don't fit into that, you are kind of ostracized. Now again, don't get me wrong, we have some really dear friends who have walked with us. even from there over the years. But I think it was extremely hard for people to understand trauma. And trauma was severe. It devastated our family. People being torn apart. And I think because of that, now did you want to add something to that?
I was just also thinking that we had some dear friends, but we were expecting you kids to be like their kids.
Yes.
And that put a lot of pressure on us because we didn't understand trauma at the time.
Because you couldn't.
You're brand new to this.
I mean, it's kind of like you saying, Shirley, like, your dad, he's had a stroke. He cannot be like a normal functioning man. And, you have to give leeway for that. But see, in Sandeep and Sneha's case, they didn't look like there was damage.
And so no one understood that.
We had an experience. I mean, we weren't there with you when you saw your mother take her life.
Yeah.
We weren't there, Sneha, when we don't even know when exactly your mom left. So, as far as we are concerned, all we see is we're giving all this love. I mean, remember this was 20 years ago. There was no teaching, no training, no counselors, or very limited
no understanding
information.
of
No
trauma
internet.
either.
No, there was internet. By 20 years ago, there was.
Not as fast as this one.
We did most of your people
Limited internet.
No, but I think that what that caused was a rift. Because now people's expectations were there, and honestly, our own expectations were up there.
Yeah.
And there was a loss.
So another loss was just the loss of our own expectations. We had dreams of what our family would be like and how we would be the successful example and all of that. And
Hey, we were doing this for God. Honestly, I'll be honest. I wanted to adopt from the time I was little. I did not want to adopt a traumatized 6-year-old. That was not in our plans. And I remember having an argument with Dad once when he said it shouldn't matter, even not about you, but even before that when we were talking about adoption and thing, I said, no, I want something that was closest to being a newborn baby. I don't want an older child at all.
Because it would be easier.
But I think it's that mindset too.
Yeah.
Why would I want to lose those years?
Exactly.
And you don't write God saying, "Dear God, please give me a traumatized 6-year-old."
Yes, exactly.
You
Nobody's
don't write. You don't ask for that. You ask. For what is comfortable for you.
you guys are young. All of you. You're not going to say, God, give me messy life.
Give me
and
storm.
talking about
Give
loss,
me
I think
pain.
another big loss which you really grieved over the years was just the loss of the first 6 years of your life, Sally.
Yeah.
Mom has grieved that so much.
And Sneha's was 10 months.
Right, and yes, that's another one she really grieves. Could we have been there earlier for Sneha?
In fact, I just mentioned to Shirley today, because
We were talking about
we're
it.
slowly talking about a lot of these things. And I said, we would have taken you as a baby. Why did, parents couldn't look after you or couldn't look? We would have been there from the beginning. Why didn't God lead us to you right at that point? And you would have been spared so much of suffering.
And pain, yeah.
Yeah, and pain. And your suffering was, it was like, I look at it like a flamethrower, that's how it came out. And it was scorching everybody around you for so long. And yours was 11 years. And then Sneha's was the next.
Yeah.
It overlapped for about 10 years. We've been through this for the past 20 years, and I don't think Rachna has seen a time when she hasn't faced that kind of loss at all. And Shirley stepped into that kind of loss with our family. So our family is very, very different.
I think we stepped into each other's losses that
agreed.
way.
No, but we were talking about that too. We were just saying how beautifully God prepared our family, and Shirley, He prepared her and her family in a way to come and merge with us, and He prepared our family because she was coming here and being with us, and there wasn't even a second thought.
Yeah.
When you both met, there wasn't even a thought that, oh my goodness, she's got this loss, what will it be like? It was like God led her to you. That was it.
Yeah.
I think 2 things that stick out to me. People who have experienced loss attract people who have experienced loss because they understand it in a way that nobody else can. Because no matter the loss, you have experienced it on a foundational base level. You have struggled. You have not been able to move sometimes, not been able to breathe, been in the fetal position, unable to figure out answers. And screaming at God, blaming others around you, hating the situation, and that's where you stand next to a person who's experienced loss and you're like, you get it. But so often talking about loss is so against the norm. It's something that's so taboo Because you
Especially in
have
faith
to.
circles.
I think the line that I remember most, especially, it's ironic that it's from a Disney song, was conceal, don't feel, don't let anybody know. Make one wrong move and everyone will know. It will show.
And seriously, that's our Indian culture too,
Yeah.
in such a big way. But I think, it's like we only show what's beautiful, what's successful out there. And I think in a way, we are Christians, and I think it's a Christian culture where, if you show loss and you show pain or struggle, it's like you're not trusting God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think both are false. They are effectively lies that are being propagated. Because, I think all of us would agree, right? That as human beings, I think the one common thing for us is loss.
Yeah.
At the smallest amount to the largest amount, we've all experienced loss to a certain extent.
It's inevitable. Everybody
It's
goes
just a part
through
of
it.
life.
Yeah.
So I would like us to think about moving into a different direction. We've all talked about some of our loss. Let's think about how this loss has made us has grown us as individuals and as a family. What has been the value that we have gained out of this loss?
So loss is real, it is painful, and I hope you've gotten a good glimpse of what loss has meant for each one of us. We want to talk to you in part 2 about how we've been able to handle loss in each one of our lives. So keep your eyes and ears open for part 2 about what loss has meant for us.